Hello. Some students walk the path less traveled and they find pride in doing so. In today's Future Global Leaders, I introduce you to one such global leader who has chosen to take an unconventional path into something of supply chain. And without further ado, I introduce to you, ladies and gentlemen, Tanushree L.
Hello, good morning. How's it going?
Very good morning, good evening from India, and it's awesome, superb. It's very nice, and so happy to see you. And you just messaged me that you're completing a meeting, so that speaks volumes about how you've taken a lot of things positively in your stride, and you're moving ahead beautifully in your career.
Yeah.
So awesome, awesome. Tell me, what are you doing, Tanushri, right now?
Right now, work-wise, I work for Amazon in the trade and business, which literally means if you have an Amazon device, an older device, such as a Kindle, Echo, Fire TV, and if you want to trade it in to get a newer device. So I work as a program manager for that entire process, from you sending in your device to you buying a new device, along with the gift card Amazon offers you and the promotional discount that Amazon offers you. And I'm the PM for the US and EU, and hopefully more countries in the future as we launch. But that's what I'm doing right now professionally. And then personally, I live in Seattle, which is kind of in the Pacific Northwest of the United States. And I recently also graduated from University of Washington with my master's in supply chain management.
Awesome, awesome. So I think this is your second stint in the US, right? I think. Can you
It
tell us
is,
something
yes.
about the first organization that you were a part of? I'll come to your education later, but
Yeah.
if you can just tell me something about, because then those two organizations are something which anybody dreams of. So
Yeah.
you can just throw some light on that.
Absolutely. So when I landed in the US, a very naive 17-year-old, I landed in New York, and then New York was a big city. It was, a lot going on, lights and cars and everything. And then I drove to this really, really tiny town in Pennsylvania called Harrisburg, and I started my journey there at Penn State. And then eventually got into the business school there and went up to the main campus at University Park. And I graduated from Pennsylvania State University in State College in 3.5 years. I graduated December 2019 and I started August 2016.
Wonderful, wonderful. So your graduation was from University Park, right? You graduated from University Park.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Wonderful. Tell us something about your master's, the MBA, because
Yeah,
that was the time
absolutely.
when COVID had stuck, and like
Yes.
it was not such a good, the world was not such a good place to live. But then you found that and you kind of made your way to achieving your MBA. Please talk us through that
Yeah.
journey.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I graduated in December 2019, I joined the Boeing company immediately. So that's how I flew down to Seattle and I settled in Seattle temporarily. And then once I started with Boeing, within a month, we had the COVID crisis. So instead of paying the hefty rent that Seattle has to offer, I moved to my brother's place in California and I worked from California for about a year and a half. And while I was working there, again, COVID was just worsening day by day. We had multiple cases, everything was shut down. It was all work from home. And while working through my career development plan with my manager, he suggested that, Boeing has a tie-up, or they are the corporate sponsors for University of Washington. And University of Washington has a great business school, which offers a master's in supply chain program that you could do along with working at Boeing. So I applied because they offered a GMAT waiver during that time. And I think that's when universities also realized that standardized test scores are not the end of the world. You have to look at applications in a more holistic approach. So I was very lucky to have the GMAT waived via an interview. And once my GMAT was waived, I actually applied and I interviewed with the school and I got in. And it's an amazing program, the Masters in Supply Chain program, because it's kind of blended. You can work and study at the same time. So while I was pursuing my master's for a year, I was also working full time with Boeing. And that's the advantage I had, just also because I had done my bachelor's here. Um, So it was amazing. I think the program is great. The master's degree is more focused on your field of study in comparison to your bachelor's program, where you can really go explore other subjects. When you enter into a MBA program or a master's program, you're really focused on the subject of your specialty. And learning supply chain at the time of COVID crisis was, I think, the best thing one could learn, because you had, supply chain shortages everywhere. You really truly understood what a global economy meant, and how supply chain analysts or managers figured out a way to bring, something from point A, which is on one side of the world, to like point B on the other. So it was amazing.
Wonderful, wonderful. I mean, so I have known you for almost like now a decade
Yes.
per se,
Yeah.
and from what I have tracked over a period of time, the kind
Yeah.
of language you're speaking, it's
Yeah.
so nice, so professional. I'm pretty sure staying in the US has gone a long way, and
Yeah.
doing your bachelor's, doing your master's there, I think it has shaped you really well. So as a mentor, both Supraja ma'am and I are really proud of you that you've gone
Yeah.
on to achieve a lot. Um,
Thank
Tell us about the student life, like your bachelor's first and then your
you.
master's.
Yeah. So I think student life, I'll compare both because it's very unique for bachelor's and master's, just because of the time you spent at the university, right? Because in your bachelor's, you spend an average of 4 years at the university, versus in your master's, you'll have like a year or 2 years max. Um, but for bachelor's, when I went to Penn State, again, Penn State is a Big Ten school. We are big on school pride. We are big on football and all of the other sports that the school plays. So I think the attention comes from there, right? Because as soon as you enter the school, you see that everyone around you has so much school pride that they all want to stick together as, Nittany Lions is what we like to call us. So I think the 4 years at school with your bachelor's program is really just a lot of fun, but also a lot of learning. Like I had one of the best times of my life in school. The freshman, sophomore, and junior year, the first 3 years are just pure fun, I think, because I remember being outside having fun until like midnight or so, and then sleeping and again waking up for my 8 a.m. class. So it's kind of a blend of both, which is like really fun. And given that Penn State was in a very small town, it was in a kind of like a university village. It was very aloof from the rest of the world. So we had like our own little ecosystem going on, and I used to live with my friends. The schooling was great because the professors are very open to questions and very open to you coming in and them mentoring you. So you can go in and say that, hey, I got in the business program, but I don't know if I my personality matches with the program. So could you suggest other programs based on my interest and based on how much you know me? So we have that relationship with the professors, which is really good. They help you kind of understanding your way through the school, the programs, and then even your career trajectory. And then so bachelor's is super fun. I don't know why I graduated in 3.5 years. I should have just completed all four because it was a lot of fun.
True.
But in those 3.5 years, I also did a study abroad, and I went to Italy for 3 months. And I think that is an amazing experience some of the schools in the US offer, because you get to go to a completely different country again and explore something of your subject. So today, you're not only like when you graduate from your bachelor's program, you not only have domain expertise in the US, but you also know a little bit about how the global economy is working because you've worked somewhere else or you've studied somewhere else, which is a great thing some of the schools offer, especially Penn State and also University of Washington Foster. And then for your master's program, you know what you're getting into. You're very concentrated in the subject that you're getting into. So the expectations are different. The expectations are that you already know something about the subject. You already have experience in that subject, and you're trying to deepen your knowledge, right? So when you go in, most of the classes in master's program, at least from what I've seen in schools, are generally in the evenings. So you don't interact with the rest of the undergraduate students, which have classes in the morning. So you have your classes in the evening. You are really interacting with companies more than, your fellow schoolmates, I would say, or fellow college mates. So you're interacting more with companies, you're talking to them, you're already prepping your, whether it's summer internship or whether it's full-time job, whatever it is, it's all like as soon as you get in, you're focused onto that. So I think the shift from having fun and learning changes to, okay, I need a job, but I also want to learn. So I think that is kind of the main focus areas for like bachelors versus masters.
Yeah, I think there's a complete paradigm shift in terms of the
Yes.
mentality.
Yeah.
Once you are, I know, I mean, like as a 16, 17-year-old, 18-year-old, when you land
Yeah.
into the US, it's a different thing altogether. There is
Yes.
freedom, there is
Yes.
independence, and
Yes.
yeah, I mean, like uh, some students really make sure that they take the process very good, and you are right up there. So,
Yeah.
my next question will be more on the standardized testing. I know during the COVID, standardized testing
Yeah.
was kind of it was waived off by a lot of colleges.
Mhm.
A very simple question: case one, case two. There's a student who is getting around 1400 out of 1600 in their SATs, and a student who is getting around 1520 in his or her SATs. Where do you think the
Mhm.
students' college choices would be, with A, with respect to location, B, with respect to the courses?
Okay.
Since you already stayed there for almost like 6 years now, so
Yeah.
something that students would definitely look up to the future generation, because
Mhm.
there's a lot of confusion around. So
Yeah.
many parents ask me, is 1400 a good score, is 1450 a good score? But then, being mentors, we are very focused that the score should be in the range of around 1500, 1510, so that
Yes.
students have a plethora of options to score from. So just I would like
Yeah.
to know a 1410
Yeah.
versus a 1510, 1520, where the
Yeah.
college choices are, A,
Yeah.
location, and B, the courses.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think like my one advice to everyone is always like if you know what you want to do. For example, if it's business, if it's a particular course in business, for example, supply chain or marketing, versus if it's engineering, if it's a particular kind like electrical, mechanical, computer science, whatever it is, look for schools based on that. And like truly on a notebook, just write down, okay, what do I want to do? Whether it's engineering, business, medicine, whatever it is. And then the second point, location. Do I want to be in a city? Am I okay with being in a suburb? Am I okay with being in a university village? Because those are really three different kinds of places in the US,
Okay.
right? Like if you're coming from Mumbai, if you're coming from Delhi, if you're coming from Pune, and you pick yourself up from there and you put yourself in a university village, it's a whole different world. It's
Oh,
like going to a very suburban Indian place, and you have to like figure out everything for yourself, right? Versus like being in New York, which is very similar to Bombay, and you have all of the cars and lights, and the city never sleeps kind of a thing, right?
true,
So
true.
it's very different. So I think you want to assess location and where you possibly want to be. And then the third one, when you talk about scores, yes, those 15 marks or 20 marks are really important because it changes your percentile, right?
Right,
Like literally, I have a friend who got 169 out of 117, one of their GRE scores. And they went from, the 100th or the 99th or the 98th percentile to the 95th percentile. And that makes a difference because then, you miss out on some of the best schools, right? So
right.
instead of, for example, him applying to MIT or Berkeley and Stanford and Harvard, he probably has to take a step down and apply to Chicago Booth and Kellogg or something like that, right? So there's like that one level that you have, and you have to go step down that one level. So that is true. But what's good, or how you can take it in a positive way, is universities understand that this is holistic learning. It's not just about standardized scores,
Right,
and it's not just about how well you've performed on them. It's also about, okay, what have you done outside of school? How
right,
many internships have you had? How many volunteer opportunities have you done? Or how many extracurricular activities are you involved with, right? So that is given equal importance when it comes to your bachelor's level. So I think that the universities have really accepted that truly standardized scores are not the end of the world through COVID. And now they're looking for, more areas how they can recognize the student's talent. But I think truly going back to that one paper that I was talking about, had I done this, it would have given me a very different perspective. So I remember we were talking about it when I think I got into Michigan State, Penn State, and a
Yeah,
couple universities in the city, which were not as good as them.
true.
Had I known, how the cities look like, or like had I done more research on where I want to be, I may have chosen otherwise. Not to say that I'm still a very proud Nittany Lion and I love Penn State, but just to give like the future students a perspective, you really have to be very strong in thought about what location you want to be in, what you want to study. Because some schools, even though they have big names, right? For example, Berkeley or Stanford or Harvard, just the culture also matters.
True.
If you are a liberal person, if you're a person with a liberal mindset, Berkeley is probably the right choice for you because it's the most liberal school in the US. If you want to do law, if you have a certain cases or professors that you follow, Harvard is probably, as we all know, the best to go into.
Yeah,
So it really depends on your subject, right? So you have to focus on what your subject is and then what are the good schools for that subject. You cannot just Google top 10 schools in the US and apply to those because they might not apply to you, right?
absolutely,
Like,
absolutely true.
yeah, like we both know Janil, and Janil is a
Correct.
dancer. Had he
Absolutely,
gone to Harvard, I don't think he would have gotten much value. But the fact
absolutely,
that he went to UCLA and studied from the dance school there, which is one of the best, he is now who he is.
absolutely,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah,
Just speaking of him, he's soon in line for this session as well.
that's amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 Um, Second thing, what I wanted to ask was about the scholarships, because what happens is
Yeah.
that now tier two, tier three cities in India, the students in tier two, tier three cities, they are also looking for options, especially in the US, in the UK, and all these places. Having
Yeah.
said so, yes, I mean like the towns, the you can say the Tony towns and Tony suburbs are fine. I mean like they know what the process is and everything,
Mhm.
but especially say a student from maybe a tier 2 or tier 3 city aspiring to go to the US, what are his or
Mhm.
her scholarship options?
So I think there are two folds. It's a twofold answer when it comes to scholarship or being funded in the US, right? When you apply, you can apply to some scholarships, and there are plenty available today. There are scholarships which Indian companies or Indian main families, such as like the Tata family or the Ambani family, they offer, versus there are scholarships which US colleges offer. So when you are applying, you can apply to both. You can apply to all of the scholarships that the Indian families have to offer, like the big families, and you can also apply to scholarships that the U.S. colleges have to offer when it comes to just having that U.S. India relationship that Modi has so fostered in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And then so you can get a scholarship through that. You can apply for a need-based scholarship when you know that your income is not up to how much the school's going to be charging. You can always apply for a need-based scholarship for the school and they can offer you that. But if you don't get scholarship per se, and you still want to pursue your education, you should and you can. Why is because when you get in your freshman year, you take your first semester as is, you take your classes, you potentially do really well in them, or you are a good resident in the dorms that they have, and potentially in your second semester or your second year, you can apply to be a teacher's assistant, a research assistant, or a resident assistant, right? So with either of these, I know a lot of schools like Georgia Tech, if you're a resident assistant, they pay for your housing and food.
Wow.
If you are, I know schools like Stanford, if you are a research assistant or a teacher's assistant, they pay for your fees of school, right?
Wow, that is really useful, because like when you talk of we knew about research assistant, we knew about teaching assistant, but resident assistance is something
Yes,
which students should know about, and
yes,
this is
yeah,
something which you really are gracious enough
yeah,
to put light on that. Um,
yeah.
Also, a couple of things that I would want students to know also about the STEM versus non-STEM. This is something which
Mhm.
always in the US STEM is preferred,
Yeah.
and like somehow or the other a student may not have an inkling towards STEM. So
Mhm.
then he's good in something else, maybe say
Mhm.
marketing, maybe say into finance something, or maybe MIS for that matter.
Mhm.
Are there any new additions, or do new additions happen year on year with respect to STEM courses? Of course, the engineering, medicine, they
Mhm.
are obviously the kind of the career path is set basically. But for students who think that certain areas are non-STEM, but right now they are included in STEM, you can speak a little bit about the new courses
Yeah.
which are getting added into the STEM field, and also per se, how does the future hold for such students?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think here's a myth I'd like to break. There are
Okay,
some courses in the business school which are STEM, although they are not like particularly engineering or math or whatever STEM comprises of, but they are ranked as STEM because we have some data courses or we do some mathematical courses which allows us to qualify some of the courses as STEM. So it depends when you talk about new additions to STEM programs. I think it really depends on school to school. For
okay,
example, if I had to give like a very like a general example, MBA, right? So every school in the US offers an MBA, but not every school's MBA is STEM.
okay,
What has happened in the last couple of years is the schools have recognized that for international students to study in the US and then have a work visa for over a year, your course needs to be STEM. So a lot of schools, a lot of good schools are moving towards that side. So I know Stanford recently changed their so Stanford GSB, the business school, they changed their curriculum to make their MBA STEM. So now when you enter through GSB and you're doing your MBA program, once you finish your MBA, you have 12 months of work permit. Plus, because that program is now STEM, you can apply for 24 plus months, and you potentially have a work visa or work permit for 3 years, which is great because then in those 3 years you can apply for H-1B, right, and hopefully get through the lottery process.
absolutely.
So it is, even though I would say it is highly, highly recommended you apply for a STEM program purely because you have more years to work. Otherwise, you don't want to be in a situation where you've exhausted your 12 months and you have to go back to India, and you haven't gotten through your H-1B lottery, or the company hasn't applied in the first year yet, and you have spent all of this money, you don't get return on investment, and you're back in India.
True.
So I think that's why I highly recommend everyone pursue a STEM program. Now, when you say that a lot of these students might not have interest in the STEM program, I would say it's amazing that the programs or the universities in the US allow a double major or a major and a minor, right? So you
Yeah.
can always do, your master's in marketing or management or finance or whatever it is you want to do, and also do a second major, or you can do a minor in computer science, in math, in supply chain, whatever it is, right? So that's the advantage I think the US gives you. Sure, you might not complete your bachelor's in 4 years. It might take you like 4.5, 5 years, but it still is fine because now you've gotten a STEM degree as well as what you wanted to do. And then you can really expand your job opportunities in both of those fields. Um, so I think that's a process. And then just always, if there's a subject you like, always keep in touch with all of the universities that are known for that subject, and ask them about, hey, do you have any STEM programs that I can blend with this subject of study that I'm interested in? So I think it's really being connected to, or understanding what your subject is and what today in the world is like what the universities are expecting from that subject.
Wonderful. So if I understand it correctly,
Yeah.
a major and a minor, say maybe a marketing and a
Mm-hmm.
minor in computer science, qualifies as a STEM program for the student.
The other way around. So
Okay.
you need to do your bachelor's in a STEM degree, like your major, right? So you have
Okay.
to major probably in computer science, in electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, or any of those fields, and you can do a double major in either of the non-STEM programs or a minor in the non-STEM programs.
Okay. Okay. Superb. So
Yeah.
that's really a very vital piece of information for the students. I remember you were on the dean list. So
I would. Yeah.
yeah. So what should student do? I mean, like once he's in the US, as you said, he can come undecided, or he has a set thought process about getting into the particular stream. how a student can get into the dean list, or maybe some of the good programs that the university has to offer other than academics.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the dean's list is for you get into the dean's list when you get a 4.0. 4.0 is basically all A's in all of your courses. So it's really that simple. Work hard, get A's in all of your classes, and you'll make it to the dean's list. It's nothing other than that. It's purely academia. But when you talk about other opportunities, there are plenty, right? You have all the universities here have something called as affinity groups, meaning organizations you can join. So I remember when I started out, I joined the dance organization that my school had. I joined the Indian organization that my school had, and I joined a volunteer organization that my school had. So through all of these, what it did is, other than academia or other than really going to school, it it helped me make friends in all of the other places that I wanted to go and explore. So when I was a part of the dance group, I met plenty of people with different dance styles, and I'm a Bharatanatyam dancer
Yeah.
myself, so it gave me like a platform to exchange ideas, do performances, really talk to people who have done like different kinds of dance forms, and have that friend group aside from my Indian friends or like my friends from school. So I think participating in such organizations or such groups really helps you get a wider perspective of what the United States has to offer, or what like you want to develop and grow into as an adult. Um, yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. Talk us about the system, a little bit about the education system. I believe US still focuses on a holistic development of an individual rather than focusing on certain cornerstones. They focus on the holistic development. Can you just brief a little bit about the education system?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think when you say holistic, or when you say like holistic learning, I would say it's holistic and diverse. They really also focus on diversity, and diversity is not just about genders or colors or any of that, right? It's also about like what kinds of like what I'll give a particular example. When I was in my master's degree in supply chain, it wasn't only focused on supply chain. We also studied about marketing. We also studied about current workplace ethics. We also studied about psychology when it comes to contracting and supply chain. So when you say holistic, or when you say diversity in school, I'm talking about that, like diversity
Okay,
in subjects, diversity on who is teaching you those courses. I mean, you can't truly, sorry to say, but have a white person teach you diversity in school, right? Like that
right,
would be really awkward in terms of what the school what the school has to offer. So
correct,
like
correct.
diversity in offerings is something that the US is just so good at, I think. Although some of the Indian schools and colleges have also come up with holistic learning and diversity on their own, and they're teaching some really good courses. But I think still where the US excels at is it's a land of immigrants, right?
True.
Like everyone here has immigrated from somewhere other than the native Indians. So you truly have a very widened perspective on learnings and life. So when you even talk about, say, a particular subject in supply chain, in a classroom, you'll have people from India, you'll have people from China, you'll have people from Southeast Asia, you'll have Europeans, you'll have Middle Eastern folks, you'll have people from all parts of the US, Latin America. So everyone has a different story. And what the professor does a great job is like really opening up those perspectives, right? So everyone can raise their hand and talk about a different method that their country uses, or like that they have seen growing up.
Right.
It's as easy as if you take a marketing class, right? I could talk easily about how marketing is so heavily ingrained in the Indian like
True,
audience,
true,
versus
true.
like in Latin America, the same company would have a very different way of marketing. So it brings about a very wide perspective on lots of things in life that you want to learn. So I think that's where like the US schools or the US colleges, they excel at just having a very, very broad perspective and diversity of thoughts and offerings.
Wonderful. So any student who has the wherewithals in terms of academia, in terms of the Pula, should definitely kind of look at a 4+2, like 4 bachelors, 2 masters, and then the world, like he can just explore the world per se.
Yeah, yes. But I would highly recommend to do bachelor's and master's from a different school.
Yeah,
Um, because I think the advantage there, let me tell you, when I did my bachelor's from Penn State, I got into my job at Boeing through Penn State because the person who was hiring me was also from Penn State, and he was like, "Oh my God, school pride! Yay! We would love some more Penn State folks,
True,
right?"
true.
So I think that's how you build relationships outside of school as well.
Right.
So that's how I got into my Boeing position. And then my manager at Boeing was like, "Oh my God, I am from University of Washington. There's this great program you should apply to, and you should become like a Washington Husky." And that's how I did my master's there. So it's like it truly is a lot about school spirit. So now I'm a Washington Husky and I'm going for a game on Saturday, right? So today, if someone from University of Washington emails me or LinkedIn messages me that, "Hey, I'm interested in this position at Amazon," I will not think twice to refer them into the company,
Right,
right?
right, right.
So it's like it's truly ingrained in that way. So I would, like, every student, I would tell them that do your bachelor's and master's in different universities, and potentially even two different coasts. There are a ton of universities on the East Coast, there are a ton of universities on the West Coast. Try both. I mean, you never know where you land up after your 6 years, or like even in the middle. So
Absolutely, absolutely. So different courses bring different perspectives, as you rightly pointed out,
yeah.
and yeah, that's so true. Talk us about little bit about the life in the US, because like I remember especially like during our erstwhile conversations
Yeah.
about the concerns per se, but then
Yeah.
how you have actually evolved over a great personality is really really a enterprising and b really something to learn from.
Yeah.
Especially there are certain parents who have single girl child or a single child per se, a little bit conservative about sending to the US. Talk us a little bit about life in the US.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, here's the thing, right? Like when I landed the first time in New York, I was truly a naive 17-year-old who did not know anything about the world. Sure, I grew up in a boarding school, so I did have, a more independent perspective. So independence wasn't an issue for me. I think my mom and dad were really aware of the fact that I can live by myself, I can survive. But I think what they were concerned about is I was really young. Again, like you said, I was a young girl who had never really lived so far away from home. And even in my family, we didn't have a lot of people who had gone abroad and studied abroad, right? So when I came in, I did not know much about social norms, or what is supposed to happen, or like how do you go through opening a bank account, or like how do you all of the things which I think schools should really prepare you and they don't. So I did not know anything about, like, oh, I should get a job, or how do I spend my money. So I think it was more of a lifestyle that I had to learn, and I had to like develop myself than anything else, because I think India does a great job of understanding or like helping students with like just studying and
Yeah.
like doing multiple things in academic world, but they don't teach you enough of like you need to save, or you need to spend a particular way, or you need to, this is how you file taxes. Oh my God, I took 2 years to file taxes. I had no clue. So it just as basic as that. But like you said, in the 6 years that I've been here, truly a lot has changed by meeting more and more people, by really just taking it with a grain of salt that now I'm here in this country. I cannot always go crying to my parents that, hey, this is not working out. Like, I can't go back. It's as simple as that. And being in peace with that, it's like, okay, now what do I have to learn to survive, right? So I
Right.
need to learn how to, file taxes and not commit fraud, for example, or like really understanding how my finances need to be, where I need to invest, how I need to get a job, like what do I need to do in terms of social norms to keep up that job and stuff like that.
Right, right.
So I think that is what has changed. And what has changed is not just, it doesn't sound the best, but not just having friends from India or Indian friends. I think you are here, you really need to expand your horizon and make friends from various different cultures. What that helps with is broadening your perspective, right? Like, you can now go and work with different people from different parts of the world, and that has helped me today in my job, because I work with folks from the EU, and there are certain social norms that they follow there, which where we don't follow in India, or which we don't follow in the US. So having perspective from all kinds of people, it really helps you broaden your perspective and be better at the job that you're doing. um, and then when you say lifestyle in the US, I think I really have to emphasize work-life balance. I think it's great. I truly appreciate logging off at whenever I do in the evenings. At Boeing, I used to log off at 3 p.m. and no one would message me. But the fact that Amazon is really hard and it drains you. Today I log off at 7 p.m. But still like once I'm logged off, no one will message you. Like they
Okay.
will not irritate you on a weekend or like in the evenings that, hey, I need this. No, there's always processes, there's always, backups, there's always delegates that they can go to if they need something serious. So you have that division of personal life versus professional life. And once you have that division, your personal life is really just truly yours, right? I
Ah,
do, if you know me, and I know you do, and if you follow me on Instagram, I do a lot of hiking, I do a lot of traveling.
true.
Um, and I think that really fills my cup in my personal life. So I'm able to give a lot in my professional life. So yeah, and Seattle, like I am always very biased towards Seattle. Seattle's a great place to be. You have lot of greenery, so many hikes, so many national parks. So lots to do outdoors. So it's beautiful.
Awesome, awesome. That was one very good thing that you hit upon, the work-life balance, which is
Yeah.
so much missing in, especially in Southeast Asia. But as you rightly pointed out, if nobody bothers you after 7 p.m., then that's actually worth
Yeah.
its. The time is worth much more than maybe diamonds and
For
platinum per
sure.
se.
Yeah, for
Great,
sure.
great. What are some of the activities that students can take up, other than maybe like say, are there any outdoor activities that students can take up while they are in their undergraduate and graduation years?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm telling you, like, I think that the great part about universities in the US is the way even they have their classes is so amazing that you do your classes, you can study during the day or whatever for bachelor's, and then your evenings are free. You can do whatever you want, or like your weekends are free. You can do whatever you want. So, like, it depends on where you are in the US. I know that a lot of schools which are situated here in the Pacific Northwest or even in California, like the north side of California, so the Bay Area, you have Stanford, Berkeley, San Jose State University, and other kinds there. All of these universities are really big on hiking, on kayaking, on doing the outdoorsy things. Like you can always find affinity groups which are doing that and be a part of it and, go do all of these extracurricular things then. I remember when I was at Penn State, I tried skiing a couple of times. I wasn't good at it, so I'm not doing it anymore. But then I tried salsa. I enjoyed it and I still like do it here and there. Then I don't even know, I've tried so many things. And you just either you have classes for those or you have like organizations which you can be a part of and try that. Like I remember when I was in Italy, I remember very distinctly telling my mom and dad that, I want to do this program because it teaches you about supply chain and business around Italian wines and foods. And then my dad was like, so we are paying for you to drink? And I was like, not really. You're paying, for me to understand the business behind drinking, but sure, you can take it that way. So you like it's truly you can do whatever you want when it comes to extracurriculars. You just have to be willing to find the right people or the right organizations or like the right places to pursue that.
Right, right. So beautifully put this, for like, because there are some students who enjoy studying only for some time, but they also
Yeah,
want to do something. So what you have actually poured out is really helpful.
yeah,
Tell us a little bit about, you have been trained by both Supraja ma'am and by me.
yeah.
You can just
Yes.
throw some light on how was the experience with Supraja ma'am, how was the experience with me. Start with Supraja ma'am.
Absolutely. So I think the one distinct difference that I think both of you have is Supraja ma'am, she gets to the point, but she gets to the point so subtly that you don't realize. And you are just like, oh yeah, that makes sense, because she like really, I don't know if it's a motherly trait or if it's like a very, very calmly and very sweetly, she like mold you to wherever you have to be.
Right.
But you are very outright in a sense. You'll be like, hey, this is what you need to do to get here, and like this is how we're going to deal with things. And so you're very outright in that sense, and she's very subtle, and she's like, you won't even realize that she's doing something, but she'll kind of guide you in that way. So I think that's a distinct difference between the two of you. But I think the two of you are great. Both of you have helped me immensely with my test scores and, applying abroad and really understanding the schools and universities here, also the programs here. And then more so, you've also been a great support to, I know, my parents, because my parents are kind of the anxious kind who are like, we don't know what's going to happen to our daughter. We don't know, where she's going and everything.
Right.
So, of course, you were a great strength to me, but you were an even bigger strength to my parents in helping them really come to peace with, this is a doable thing. She will be good. She will be fine. And she'll kind of flourish there. Don't worry. So I think mentorship in that way is really comprehensive, right? Because you become almost part of the family.
True.
It's not a very professional relationship at that point. It's like, okay, how do I help you grow? Not just, hey, this is where we need to be and you need to be there, kind of a thing. So yeah.
Overwhelmed by this response. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
One last question before we kind of
Mhm.
I'll let you go. Uh, Talk us a little bit about whether a student should be deciding something or student should be undeciding, and the more he's undecided, the better he'll flourish in the US.
So I think it truly depends. I will say that if you are, for example, I know some of the students, like my younger sister who just joined a university in Canada, she
Yes.
was really passionate about medicine. She knew that she wanted to do medicine and she knew that she didn't want to do anything else. So at that point, if you have, such sheer dedicated passion towards a subject, I would say just go for it and then go for the best university in that realm, right?
Okay.
But if you are kind of a person who's like, I don't want to do engineering just because, my parents are pressuring me, or like everyone in India is doing engineering, or whatever it is, that's why I want to do business. When that's why it comes into place, or like, that's why you're settling for something, I would say just go undecided and like
Okay.
explore and then see what you want to do. Because like that's what happened to me. My mom, I did my 11th and 12th in science,
Yeah.
and my parents were like, go for engineering, go for engineering, go for engineering. And I was like, just because they're telling me to go for engineering, I don't want to do it. So I settled for business, kind of a thing, right?
Right.
I'm very happy with my decision, but not a lot of students are in that way, right? So I would say if you're truly passionate about something, you know what you want to do, you want to explore that subject, go for that particular subject. But if you are kind of undecided, if you are like, I mean, I like finance, but I also like computer science, or if you're like, I like electrical engineering, but I have like some inkling towards like mechanical, go for a particular school or go undecided. Like if you are confused between a couple of business subjects, just apply to the business school in general,
Okay.
right? If you're confused about some of the engineering courses, just apply to the engineering school in general, or just be undecided. There's no harm, or there's no one's going to look down on you, or no one's going to think, "Arey, isko pata nahi kya karna hai," kind of a thing in the
Right.
US. Like it's fine to be undecided, and you explore and you understand what you want to do. So yeah.
Wow. Thank you so much, Tanushree. Thank you so much. It
Yeah,
was really,
absolutely.
it was really an eye opener. I'm sure it will be an eye opener for a lot of students per se, and your inputs are really worth their weight in gold. Once again, thank you for
Yeah,
honoring this, and we'll catch up soon.
anytime.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. And if anyone wants to reach me, they can find me on LinkedIn or Instagram. Just message me, and I'm happy to walk them through some of the things.
absolutely. I'll put your coordinates on the YouTube.
Yes,
Yeah,
sounds good.
yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Tanushree.